Book 5, The Argument. Morning approached. Eve relates to Adam her troublesome dream. He likes it not, yet comforts her. They come forth to their day labours. Their morning hymn at the door of their bower. God, to render man inexcusable, sends Raphael to admonish him of his obedience, of his free estate, of his enemy near at hand, who he is, and why his enemy, and whatever else may avail Adam to know. Raphael comes down to paradise, his appearance described, his coming discerned by Adam afar off sitting at the door of his bower. He goes out to meet him, brings him to his lodge, entertains him with the choicest fruits of paradise got together by Eve. Their discourse at table. Raphael performs his message, minds Adam of his state and of his enemy, relates at Adam's request who that enemy is, and how he came to be so, beginning from his first revolt in heaven and the occasion thereof, how he drew his legions after him to the parts of the north, and there incited them to rebel with him, persuading all but only Abdiel a seraph, who in argument dissuades and opposes him, then forsakes him. Book 5. Now Morn, her rosy steps in the eastern clime advancing, sowed the earth with orient pearl, when Adam waked so customed. For his sleep was airy light, from pure digestion bred, and temperate vapours bland, which the only sound of leaves and fuming rills Aurora's fan lightly dispersed, and the shrill matin song of birds on every bough. So much the more his wonder was to find unwakened Eve with tresses discomposed, and glowing cheek, as through unquiet rest. He on his side, leaning half raised, with looks of cordial love, hung over her enamoured, and beheld beauty, which, whether waking or asleep, shot forth peculiar graces. Then with voice mild as when Zephyrus on Flora breathes, her hands soft touching, whispered thus: "Awake, my fairest, my espoused, my latest found, heaven's last best gift, my ever new delight. Awake, the morning shines, and the fresh field calls us. We lose the prime to mark how spring our tender plants, how blows the citron grove, what drops the myrrh and what the balmy reed, how nature paints her colours, how the bee sits on the bloom extracting liquid sweet." Such whispering waked her, but with startled eye on Adam, whom embracing thus she spake: "O soul, in whom my thoughts find all repose, my glory, my perfection, glad I see thy face and morn returned, for I this night, such night till this I never passed, have dreamed, if dreamed, not as I oft am wont, of thee, works of day past or morrow's next design, but of offence and trouble, which my mind knew never till this irksome night. Methought, close at mine ear, one called me forth to walk, with gentle voice. I thought it thine. It said, 'Why sleep'st thou, Eve? Now is the pleasant time, the cool, the silent, save where silence yields to the night-warbling bird, that now awake tunes sweetest his love-laboured song. Now reigns full-orbed the moon, and with more pleasing light shadowy sets off the face of things. In vain, if none regard. Heaven wakes with all his eyes, whom to behold but thee, nature's desire, in whose sight all things joy with ravishment, attracted by thy beauty still to gaze. I rose, as at thy call, but found thee not. To find thee I directed then my walk, and on methought alone I passed through ways that brought me on a sudden to the tree of interdicted knowledge. Fair it seemed, much fairer to my fancy than by day, and as I wondering looked, beside it stood one shaped and winged like one of those from heaven by us oft seen, his dewy locks distilled ambrosia. On that tree he also gazed, and, "O fair plant," said he, "with fruit surcharged, deigns none to ease thy load and taste thy sweet? Nor God, nor man, is knowledge so despised? Or envy, or what reserve forbids to taste? Forbid who will, none shall from me withhold longer thy offered good. Why else set here? This said, he paused not, but with venturous arm he plucked, he tasted. Me damp horror chilled at such bold words, vouched with a deed so bold. But he thus overjoyed, O fruit divine, sweet of thyself, but much more sweet thus cropped, forbidden here it seems as only fit for gods, yet able to make gods of men. And why not gods of men, since good, the more communicated, more abundant grows, the author not impaired, but honoured more? Here, happy creature, fair angelic Eve, partake thou also. Happy though thou art, happier thou mayst be, worthier canst not be. Taste this, and be henceforth among the gods thyself a goddess, not to earth confined, but sometimes in the air as we, sometimes ascend to heaven by merit thine, and see what life the gods live there, and such live thou. So saying, he drew nigh, and to me held, even to my mouth of that same fruit, held part which he had plucked. The pleasant savoury smell so quickened appetite that I, methought, could not but taste. Forthwith, up to the clouds with him I flew, and underneath beheld the earth outstretched immense, a prospect wide and various. Wondering at my flight and change to this high exaltation, suddenly my guide was gone, and I, methought, sunk down and fell asleep. But oh, how glad I waked to find this but a dream. Thus Eve her night related, and thus Adam answered sad. Best image of myself, and dearer half, the trouble of thy thoughts this night in sleep affects me equally. Nor can I like this uncouth dream of evil sprung, I fear. Yet evil whence? In thee can harbour none, created pure. But know that in the soul are many lesser faculties that serve reason as chief. Among these, fancy next her office holds. Of all external things which the 5 watchful senses represent, she forms imaginations, airy shapes which reason, joining or disjoining, frames all what we affirm or what deny, and call our knowledge or opinion. Then retires into her private cell when nature rests. Oft in her absence, mimic fancy wakes to imitate her, but misjoining shapes wild work produces oft, and most in dreams, ill-matching words and deeds long past or late. Some such resemblances, methinks, I find of our last evening's talk in this thy dream, but with addition strange. Yet be not sad. Evil into the mind of God or man may come and go, so unapproved, and leave no spot or blame behind, which gives me hope that what in sleep thou didst abhor to dream, waking thou never will consent to do. Be not disheartened then, nor cloud those looks that wont to be more cheerful and serene than when fair morning first smiles on the world. And let us to our fresh employments rise among the groves, the fountains, and the flowers, that open now their choicest bosom smells, reserved from night, and kept for thee in store. So cheered he his fair spouse, and she was cheered, but silently a gentle tear let fall from either eye, and wiped them with her hair. 2 other precious drops that ready stood, each in their crystal sluice, he, ere they fell, kissed, as the gracious signs of sweet remorse and pious awe, that feared to have offended. So all was cleared, and to the field they haste. But first, from under shady arborous roof, soon as they forth were come to open sight of dayspring and the sun, who, scarce uprisen with wheels yet hovering o'er the ocean brim, shot parallel to the earth his dewy ray, discovering in wide landscape all the east of paradise and Eden's happy plains. Lowly they bowed adoring, and began their orisons, each morning duly paid in various style. For neither various style nor holy rapture wanted they to praise their Maker, in fit strains pronounced, or sung, unmeditated. Such prompt eloquence flowed from their lips, in prose or numerous verse, more tunable than needed lute or harp to add more sweetness. And they thus began. These are thy glorious works, parent of good, almighty. Thine this universal frame, thus wondrous fair. Thyself, how wondrous then, unspeakable, who sits above these heavens to us invisible, or dimly seen in these thy lowest works. Yet these declare thy goodness beyond thought and power divine. Speak, ye who best can tell, ye sons of light, angels, for ye behold him, and with songs and choral symphonies day without night circle his throne rejoicing. Ye in heaven, on earth, join all ye creatures to extol him first, him last, him midst and without end. Fairest of stars, last in the train of night, if better thou belong not to the dawn, sure pledge of day that crownst the smiling morn with thy bright circle, praise him in thy sphere while day arises, that sweet hour of prime. Thou sun, of this great world both eye and soul, acknowledge him thy greater, sound his praise in thy eternal course, both when thou climbst, and when high noon hast gained, and when thou fallest. Moon, that now meetest the orient sun, now fliest, with the fixed stars fixed in their orb that flies, and ye 5 other wandering fires that move in mystic dance not without song, resound his praise, who out of darkness called up light. Air, and ye elements, the eldest birth of nature's womb that in quaternion run perpetual circle multiform, and mix and nourish all things, let your ceaseless change vary to our great Maker still new praise. Ye mists and exhalations, that now rise from hill or steaming lake, dusky or grey, till the sun paint your fleecy skirts with gold, in honour to the world's great author, rise. Whether to deck with clouds the uncoloured sky, or wet the thirsty earth with falling showers, rising or falling still advance his praise. His praise, ye winds, that from 4 quarters blow, breathe soft or loud, and wave your tops, ye pines, with every plant, in sign of worship wave. Fountains, and ye that warble as ye flow, melodious murmurs warbling tune his praise. Join voices, all ye living souls. Ye birds that singing up to heaven gate ascend, bear on your wings and in your notes his praise. Ye that in waters glide, and ye that walk the earth, and stately tread or lowly creep, witness if I be silent, morn or even, to hill or valley, fountain or fresh shade, made vocal by my song and taught his praise. Hail, universal Lord, be bounteous still to give us only good, and if the night hath gathered aught of evil, or concealed, disperse it, as now light dispels the dark. So prayed they, innocent, and to their thoughts firm peace recovered soon, and wonted calm. On to their morning's rural work they haste, among sweet dews and flowers, where any row of fruit trees over-woody reached too far their pampered boughs, and needed hands to check fruitless embraces. Or they led the vine to wed her elm. She, spoused, about him twines her marriageable arms, and with him brings her dower the adopted clusters to adorn his barren leaves. Them thus employed, beheld with pity heaven's high king, and to him called Raphael, the sociable spirit that deigned to travel with Tobias, and secured his marriage with a 7 times wedded maid. Raphael, said he, thou hear'st what stir on earth Satan, from hell scaped through the darksome gulf, hath raised in paradise, and how disturbed this night the human pair, how he designs in them at once to ruin all mankind. Go therefore, half this day, as friend with friend, converse with Adam. In what bower or shade thou find'st him from the heat of noon retired, to respite his day labour with repast or with repose, and such discourse bring on as may advise him of his happy state. Happiness in his power left free to will, left to his own free will, his will, though free, yet mutable. Whence warn him to beware he swerve not too secure. Tell him withal his danger and from whom, what enemy, late fallen himself from heaven, is plotting now the fall of others from like state of bliss. By violence, no, for that shall be withstood, but by deceit and lies. This let him know, lest, wilfully transgressing, he pretend surprisal, unadmonished, unforewarned. So spake the Eternal Father, and fulfilled all justice. Nor delayed the winged saint, after his charge received, but from among thousand celestial ardours, where he stood veiled with his gorgeous wings, upspringing light, flew through the midst of heaven. The angelic choirs, on each hand parting, to his speed gave way through all the imperial road, till at the gate of heaven arrived, the gate, self-opened, wide on golden hinges turning, as by work divine the sovereign architect had framed. From hence no cloud, or, to obstruct his sight, star interposed, however small he sees, not unconformed to other shining globes, earth, and the garden of God with cedars crowned above all hills. As when by night the glass of Galileo, less assured, observes imagined lands and regions in the moon, or Pilate, from amidst the Cyclades, Delos or Samos first appearing, kens a cloudy spot. Down thither, prone in flight, he speeds, and through the vast ethereal sky sails between worlds and worlds with steady wing, now on the polar winds, then with quick fan winnows the buxom air, till, within soar of towering eagles, to all the fowls he seems a phoenix, gazed by all, as that sole bird when to enshrine his relics in the sun's bright temple to Egyptian Thebes he flies. At once on the eastern cliff of paradise he lights, and to his proper shape returns as seraph winged. 6 wings he wore, to shade his lineaments divine. The pair that clad each shoulder broad came mantling o'er his breast with regal ornament. The middle pair girt like a starry zone his waist, and round skirted his loins and thighs with downy gold and colours dipped in heaven. The third, his feet, shadowed from either heel with feathered mail, sky-tinctured grain. Like Maya's son he stood, and shook his plumes, that heavenly fragrance filled the circuit wide. Straight knew him all the bands of angels under watch, and to his state, and to his message high in honour rise. For on some message high they guessed him bound. Their glittering tents he passed, and now is come into the blissful field, through groves of myrrh, and flowering odours, cassia, nard, and balm, a wilderness of sweets. For nature here wantoned as in her prime, and played at will her virgin fancies, pouring forth more sweet, wild above rule or art, enormous bliss. Him through the spicy forest onward come Adam discerned, as in the door he sat of his cool bower, while now the mounted sun shot down direct his fervid rays to warm earth's inmost womb, more warmth than Adam needs. And Eve within, due at her hour, prepared for dinner savoury fruits of taste to please true appetite, and not disrelish thirst of nectareous draughts between, from milky stream, berry, or grape. To whom thus Adam called, "Haste hither, Eve, and worth thy sight behold eastward among those trees, what glorious shape comes this way moving, seems another morn risen on mid-noon. Some great behest from heaven to us perhaps he brings, and will vouchsafe this day to be our guest. But go with speed, and what thy stores contain bring forth, and pour abundance fit to honour and receive our heavenly stranger. Well we may afford our givers their own gifts, and large bestow from large bestowed, where nature multiplies her fertile growth, and by disburthening grows more fruitful, which instructs us not to spare." To whom thus Eve, "Adam, earth's hallowed mould of God inspired, small store will serve, where store all seasons, ripe for use, hangs on the stalk, save what by frugal storing firmness gains to nourish, and superfluous moist consumes. But I will haste, and from each bough and brake, each plant and juiciest gourd, will pluck such choice to entertain our angel guest, as he, beholding, shall confess that here on earth God hath dispensed his bounties as in heaven. So saying, with dispatchful looks in haste she turns, on hospitable thoughts intent, what choice to choose for delicacy best, what order so contrived as not to mix tastes, not well joined, inelegant, but bring taste after taste upheld with kindliest change. Bestirs her then, and from each tender stalk, whatever earth all-bearing mother yields in India, east or west, or middle shore in Pontus, or the Punic coast, or where Alcinous reigned, fruit of all kinds in coat, rough or smooth rind, or bearded husk or shell, she gathers, tribute large, and on the board heaps with unsparing hand. For drink, the grape she crushes, inoffensive must, and meads from many a berry, and from sweet kernels pressed she tempers dulcet creams, nor these to hold once her fit vessels pure. Then strows the ground with rose and odours from the shrub unfumed. Meanwhile, our primitive great sire, to meet his godlike guest, walks forth without more train accompanied than with his own complete perfections. In himself was all his state, more solemn than the tedious pomp that waits on princes, when their rich retinue long of horses led and grooms besmeared with gold dazzles the crowd and sets them all agape. Nearer his presence, Adam, though not awed, yet with submiss approach and reverence meek, as to a superior nature bowing low, thus said, Native of heaven, for other place none can than heaven's such glorious shape contain. Since by descending from the thrones above those happy places thou hast deigned a while to want, and honour these, vouchsafe with us two only, who yet by sovereign gift possess this spacious ground, in yonder shady bower to rest, and what the garden choicest bears to sit and taste, till this meridian heat be over, and the sun more cool decline. Whom thus the angelic virtue answered mild, Adam, I therefore came, nor art thou such created, or such place hast here to dwell, as may not oft invite, though spirits of heaven, to visit thee. Lead on then where thy bower o'ershades, for these mid-hours till evening rise, I have at will. So to the sylvan lodge they came, that like Pomona's arbour smiled, with flowerets decked and fragrant smells. But Eve, undecked save with herself, more lovely fair than wood-nymph, or the fairest goddess feigned of three that in Mount Ida naked strove, stood to entertain her guest from heaven. No veil she needed, virtue-proof, no thought infirm altered her cheek, on whom the angel hail bestowed the holy salutation used long after to blessed Mary, second Eve. Hail, mother of mankind, whose fruitful womb shall fill the world more numerous with thy sons than with these various fruits the trees of God have heaped this table. Raised of grassy turf their table was, and mossy seats had round, and on her ample square from side to side all autumn piled, though spring and autumn here danced hand in hand. Awhile discourse they hold, no fear lest dinner cool, when thus began our author. Heavenly stranger, please to taste these bounties, which our nourisher, from whom all perfect good unmeasured out descends, to us for food and for delight hath caused the earth to yield. Unsavoury food, perhaps, to spiritual natures. Only this I know, that one celestial Father gives to all. To whom the angel, therefore what he gives, whose praise be ever sung, to man in part spiritual may of purest spirits be found no ingrateful food. And food alike those pure intelligential substances require as doth your rational, and both contain within them every lower faculty of sense whereby they hear, see, smell, touch, taste, tasting, concoct, digest, assimilate, and corporeal to incorporeal turn. For know, whatever was created needs to be sustained and fed. Of elements, the grosser feeds the purer, earth, the sea, earth and the sea feed air, the air those fires ethereal, and as lowest first the moon, whence in her visage round those spots, unpurged vapours, not yet into her substance turned. Nor doth the moon no nourishment exhale from her moist continent to higher orbs. The sun, that light imparts to all, receives from all his elemental recompense in humid exhalations, and at even sups with the ocean. Though in heaven the trees of life ambrosial fruitage bear, and vines yield nectar, though from off the boughs each morn we brush mellifluous dews, and find the ground covered with pearly grain, yet God hath here varied his bounties so with new delights, as may compare with heaven. And to taste, think not I shall be nice. So down they sat, and to their viands fell, nor seemingly the angel, nor in mist, the common gloss of theologians, but with keen dispatch of real hunger and concoctive heat to transubstantiate. What redounds transpires through spirits with ease. Nor wonder if by fire of sooty coal the empiric alchemist can turn, or holds it possible to turn, metals of drossiest ore to perfect gold, as from the mine. Meanwhile at table Eve ministered naked, and their flowing cups with pleasant liquors crowned. O innocence deserving paradise, if ever then had the sons of God excuse to have been enamoured at that sight. But in those hearts love unlibidinous reigned, nor jealousy was understood, the injured lover's hell. Thus when with meat and drinks they had sufficed, not burdened nature, sudden mind arose in Adam, not to let the occasion pass, given him by this great conference to know of things above his world, and of their being who dwell in heaven, whose excellence he saw transcend his own so far, whose radiant forms, divine effulgence, whose high power so far exceeded human. And his wary speech thus to the imperial minister he framed. Inhabitant with God, now know I well thy favour in this honour done to man, under whose lowly roof thou hast vouchsafed to enter, and these earthly fruits to taste, food not of angels, yet accepted so, as that more willingly thou couldst not seem at heaven's high feasts to have fed. Yet what compare? To whom the winged hierarch replied, O Adam, one Almighty is from whom all things proceed, and up to him return, if not depraved from good, created all such to perfection, one first matter, all, endued with various forms, various degrees of substance, and in things that live, of life, but more refined, more spirituous, and pure, as nearer to him placed, or nearer tending, each in their several active spheres assigned, till body up to spirit work, in bounds proportioned to each kind. So from the root springs lighter the green stalk, from thence the leaves more airy, last the bright consummate flower spirit's odorous breathes. Flowers and their fruit, man's nourishment, by gradual scales sublimed, to vital spirits aspire, to animal, to intellectual, give both life and sense, fancy and understanding, whence the soul reason receives, and reason is her being, discursive or intuitive. Discourse is oftest yours, the latter most is ours, differing but in degree, of kind the same. Wonder not then what God for you saw good, if I refuse not, but convert as you to proper substance. Time may come when men with angels may participate, and find no inconvenient diet, nor too light fare. And from these corporal nutriments perhaps your bodies may at last turn all to spirit, improved by tract of time, and, winged, ascend ethereal as we, or may, at choice, here or in heavenly paradises dwell, if ye be found obedient, and retain unalterably firm his love entire, whose progeny you are. Meanwhile, enjoy your fill what happiness this happy state can comprehend, incapable of more. To whom the patriarch of mankind replied, O favourable spirit, propitious guest, well hast thou taught the way that might direct our knowledge, and the scale of nature set from centre to circumference, whereon, in contemplation of created things, by steps we may ascend to God. But say, what meant that caution joined, if ye be found obedient? Can we want obedience then to him, or possibly his love desert, who formed us from the dust and placed us here, full to the utmost measure of what bliss human desires can seek or apprehend? To whom the angel, Son of heaven and earth, attend. That thou art happy, owe to God. That thou continuest such, owe to thyself. That is, to thy obedience. Therein stand. This was that caution given thee, be advised. God made thee perfect, not immutable. And good he made thee, but to persevere he left it in thy power, ordained thy will by nature free, not overruled by fate, inextricable or strict necessity. Our voluntary service he requires, not our necessitated. Such with him finds no acceptance, nor can find. For how can hearts not free be tried whether they serve willing or no, who will but what they must by destiny, and can no other choose? Myself, and all the angelic host that stand in sight of God enthroned, our happy state hold as you yours, while our obedience holds. On other surety none. Freely we serve, because we freely love, as in our will to love or not. In this we stand or fall. And some are fallen, to disobedience fallen. And so from heaven to deepest hell. O fall from what high state of bliss into what woe! To whom our great progenitor, thy words attentive, and with more delighted ear, divine instructor, I have heard than when cherubic songs by night from neighbouring hills aerial music send. Nor knew I not to be both will and deed created free, yet that we never shall forget to love our Maker, and obey him, whose command single is yet so just, my constant thoughts assured me, and still assure. Though what thou tellest hath passed in heaven, some doubt within me move, but more desire to hear, if thou consent, the full relation, which must needs be strange, worthy of sacred silence to be heard. And we have yet large day, for scarce the sun hath finished half his journey, and scarce begins his other half in the great zone of heaven. Thus Adam made request, and Raphael, after short pause assenting, thus began. High matter thou enjoinest me, O prime of men. Sad task and hard. For how shall I relate to human sense the invisible exploits of warring spirits, how without remorse the ruin of so many glorious once, and perfect while they stood? How last unfold the secrets of another world, perhaps not lawful to reveal? Yet for thy good this is dispensed, and what surmounts the reach of human sense I shall delineate so by likening spiritual to corporal forms, as may express them best. Though what if earth be but the shadow of heaven, and things therein each to other like, more than on earth is thought? As yet this world was not, and chaos wild reigned where these heavens now roll, where earth now rests, upon her centre poised. When on a day, for time, though in eternity, applied to motion, measures all things durable by present, past, and future, on such day, as heaven's great year brings forth, the imperial host of angels, by imperial summons called, innumerable before the Almighty's throne forthwith, from all the ends of heaven appeared under their hierarchs in orders bright. 10,000 ensigns high advanced, standards and gonfalons twixt van and rear stream in the air, and for distinction serve of hierarchies, of orders and degrees. or in their glittering tissues bear emblazed holy memorials, acts of zeal and love recorded eminent. Thus when in orbs of circuit inexpressible they stood, orb within orb, the Father infinite, by whom in bliss embosomed sat the Son, amidst as from a flaming mount whose top brightness had made invisible, thus spake: Hear all ye angels, progeny of light, thrones, dominations, princedoms, virtues, powers, hear my decree which unrevoked shall stand. This day I have begot, whom I declare my only Son, and on this holy hill him have anointed, whom ye now behold at my right hand. Your head I him appoint, and by myself have sworn to him shall bow all knees in heaven, and shall confess him Lord. Under his great vicegerent reign abide united as one individual soul for ever happy. Him who disobeys, me disobeys, breaks union, and that day, cast out from God and blessed vision, falls into utter darkness, deep engulfed, his place ordained without redemption, without end. So spake the Omnipotent, and with his words all seemed well pleased, all seemed, but were not all. That day, as other solemn days, they spent in song and dance about the sacred hill, mystical dance which yonder starry sphere of planets and of fixed in all her wheels resembles nearest mazes intricate, eccentric, intervolved, yet regular than most, when most irregular they seem. And in their motions harmony divine so smooths her charming tones that God's own ear listens delighted. Evening now approached, for we have also our evening and our morn, we ours for change delectable, not need. Forthwith from dance to sweet repast they turn desirous, all in circles as they stood. Tables are set, and on a sudden piled with angels' food, and rubied nectar flows in pearl, in diamond, and massy gold, fruit of delicious vines, the growth of heaven. On flowers reposed, and with fresh flowerets crowned, they eat, they drink, and in communion sweet quaff immortality and joy, secure of surfeit, where full measure only bounds excess, before the all-bounteous King, who showered with copious hand, rejoicing in their joy. Now, when ambrosial night with clouds exhaled from that high mount of God, whence light and shade spring both, the face of brightest heaven had changed to grateful twilight, for night comes not there in darker veil, and roseate dews disposed all but the unsleeping eyes of God to rest. Wide over all the plain, and wider far than all this globous earth in plain outspread, such are the courts of God, the angelic throng, dispersed in bands and files, their camp extend, by living streams among the trees of life, pavilions numberless, and sudden reared celestial tabernacles where they slept, fanned with cool winds, save those who in their course melodious hymns about the sovereign throne alternate all night long. But not so waked Satan, so call him now, his former name is heard no more in heaven. He of the first, if not the first archangel, great in power, in favour and preeminence, yet fraught with envy against the Son of God, that day honoured by his great Father, and proclaimed Messiah, King anointed, could not bear through pride that sight, and thought himself impaired. Deep malice thence conceiving and disdain, soon as midnight brought on the dusky hour, friendliest to sleep and silence, he resolved with all his legions to dislodge, and leave unworshipped, unobeyed the throne supreme, contemptuous. And his next subordinate awakening, thus to him in secret spake: Sleepest thou, companion dear? What sleep can close thy eyelids? And rememberest what decree of yesterday so late hath passed the lips of heaven's Almighty? Thou to me thy thoughts wast wont, I mine to thee wast wont to impart. Both waking we were one, How then can now thy sleep dissent? New laws thou seest imposed, new laws from him who reigns, new minds may raise in us who serve, new councils to debate what doubtful may ensue. More in this place to utter is not safe. Assemble thou of all those myriads which we lead the chief, tell them that by command, ere yet dim night her shadowy cloud withdraws, I am to haste, and all who under me their banners wave, homeward with flying march, where we possess the quarters of the north, there to prepare fit entertainment to receive our King, the great Messiah, and his new commands, who speedily through all the hierarchies intends to pass triumphant and give laws. So spake the false archangel, and infused bad influence into the unwary breast of his associate. He together calls, or several one by one, the regent powers under him regent, tells, as he was taught, that the Most High commanding, now ere night, now ere dim night had disencumbered heaven, the great hierarchical standard was to move, tells the suggested cause, and casts between ambiguous words and jealousies to sound or taint integrity. But all obeyed the wonted signal and superior voice of their great potentate, for great indeed his name, and high was his degree in heaven. His countenance, as the morning star that guides the starry flock, allured them, and with lies drew after him the third part of heaven's host. Meanwhile the eternal eye, whose sight discerns abstrusest thoughts, from forth his holy mount and from within the golden lamps that burn nightly before him, saw, without their light, rebellion rising, saw in whom, how spread among the sons of morn, what multitudes were banded to oppose his high decree, and, smiling to his only son, thus said, Son, thou in whom my glory I behold in full resplendence, heir of all my might, nearly it now concerns us to be sure of our omnipotence, and with what arms we mean to hold what anciently we claim of deity or empire. Such a foe is rising, who intends to erect his throne equal to ours throughout the spacious north, nor so content hath in his thought to try in battle what our power is, or our right. Let us advise, and to this hazard draw with speed what force is left, and all employ in our defence, lest unawares we lose this our high place, our sanctuary, our hill. To whom the sun, with calm aspect and clear, lightning divine, ineffable, serene, made answer, Mighty Father, thou thy foes justly hast in derision, and secure laughest at their vain designs and tumults vain. Matter to me of glory, whom their hate illustrates, when they see all regal power given me to quell their pride, and in event know whether I be dexterous to subdue thy rebels, or be found the worst in heaven. So spake the Son. But Satan, with his powers, far was advanced on winged speed, and host, innumerable as the stars of night or stars of morning, dewdrops which the sun impearls on every leaf and every flower. Regions they passed, the mighty regencies of seraphim and potentates and thrones, in their triple degrees, reasons to which all thy dominion, Adam, is no more than what this garden is to all the earth, and all the sea from one entire globose stretched into longitude, which having passed, at length into the limits of the north they came, and Satan to his royal seat, high on a hill, far blazing as a mount raised on a mount, with pyramids and towers from diamond quarries hewn and rocks of gold, the palace of great Lucifer, so call that structure in the dialect of men interpreted, which not long after, he, affecting all equality with God, in imitation of that mount whereon Messiah was declared in sight of heaven, the mountain of the congregation called, for thither he assembled all his train, pretending so commanded to consult about the great reception of their king thither to come, and with calumnious art of counterfeited truth, thus held their ears. Thrones, dominations, princedoms, virtues, powers. If these magnific titles yet remain, not merely titular, since by decree another now hath to himself engrossed all power, and us eclipsed under the name of King Anointed, for whom all this haste of midnight march and hurried meeting here, this only to consult how we may best, with what may be devised of honours new, receive him, coming to receive from us knee tribute yet unpaid, prostration vile. Too much to one, but double how endured, to one and to his image now proclaimed. But what if better counsels might erect our minds and teach us to cast off this yoke? Will ye submit your necks and choose to bend the supple knee? Ye will not, if I trust to know ye right, or if ye know yourselves natives and sons of heaven possessed before by none, and if not equal all, yet free, equally free. For orders and degrees jar not with liberty, but well consist. Who can in reason then, or right, assume monarchy over such as live by right his equals? If in power and splendour less, in freedom equal? Or can introduce law and edict on us who without law err not, much less for this to be our lord, and look for adoration to the abuse of those imperial titles which assert our being ordained to govern, not to serve? Thus far his bold discourse without control had audience, when among the seraphim Abdiel, than whom none with more zeal adored the deity, and divine commands obeyed, stood up, and in a flame of zeal severe the current of his fury thus opposed. O argument blasphemous, false, and proud! Words which no ear ever to hear in heaven expected least of all from thee, ingrate, in place thyself so high above thy peers. Canst thou, with impious obloquy, condemn the just decree of God, pronounced and sworn, that to his only Son, by right endued with regal sceptre, every soul in heaven shall bend the knee, and in that honour due confess him rightful King? Unjust, thou sayest, flatly unjust to bind with laws the free, and equal over equals to let reign one over all with unsucceeded power. Shalt thou give law to God? Shalt thou dispute with him the points of liberty, who made thee what thou art, and formed the powers of heaven, such as he pleased, and circumscribed their being? Yet, by experience taught, we know how good, and of our dignity, how provident he is, how far from thought to make us less, bent rather to exalt our happy state, under one head more near united. But to grant it thee unjust, that equal over equals monarch reign, thyself, though great and glorious, dost thou count, or all angelic nature joined in one, equal to him, begotten Son, by whom, as by his word, the mighty Father made all things, even thee? And all the spirits of heaven by him created in their bright degrees, crowned them with glory, and to their glory named thrones, dominations, princedoms, virtues, powers, essential powers, nor by his reign obscured, but more illustrious made. Since he the head, one of our number thus reduced becomes, his laws, our laws. All honour to him done returns our own. Cease then this impious rage, and tempt not these, but hasten to appease the incensed Father and the incensed Son, while pardon may be found, in time besought. So spake the fervent angel. But his zeal none seconded, as out of season judged, or singular and rash. Whereat rejoiced the apostate, and, more haughty, thus replied, That we were formed, then, sayest thou, and the work of secondary hands by task transferred from father to his son? Strange point, and new. Doctrine which we would know whence learned, who saw when this creation was, Rememberest thou thy making while the Maker gave thee being? We know no time when we were not as now. No, none before us, self-begot, self-raised by our own quickening power, when fatal course had circled his full orb, the birth mature of this our native heaven, ethereal sons. Our puissance is our own right hand shall teach us highest deeds by proof to try who is our equal. Then thou shalt behold whether by supplication we intend address, and to begirt the almighty throne, beseeching or besieging. This report, these tidings carry to the anointed king, and fly, ere evil intercept thy flight, he said, and, as the sound of waters deep, hoarse murmur echoed to his words applause through the infinite host, nor less for that the flaming seraph, fearless, though alone encompassed round with foes, thus answered bold, O alienate from God! O spirit accursed, forsaken of all good! I see thy fall determined, and thy hapless crew involved in this perfidious fraud, contagion spread both of thy crime and punishment. Henceforth no more be troubled how to quit the yoke of God's Messiah. Those indulgent laws will not be now vouchsafed. Other decrees against thee are gone forth without recall. That golden sceptre, which thou didst reject, is now an iron rod to bruise and break thy disobedience. Well thou didst advise, yet not for thy advice or threats I fly these wicked tents devoted, lest the wrath impendent, raging into sudden flame, distinguish not. For soon expect to feel his thunder on thy head devouring fire. Then, who created thee, lamenting, learn. When who can uncreate thee, thou shalt know. So spake the seraph Abdiel, faithful found among the faithless, faithful only he. Among innumerable false, unmoved, unshaken, unseduced, unterrified, his loyalty he kept, his love, his zeal. Nor number nor example with him wrought to swerve from truth or change his constant mind, though single. From amidst them forth he passed, long way through hostile scorn, which he sustained, superior, nor of violence feared aught. And, with retorted scorn, his back he turned on those proud towers, to swift destruction doomed. Book 6, The Argument. Raphael continues to relate how Michael and Gabriel were sent forth to battle against Satan and his angels. The first fight described. Satan and his powers retire under night. He calls a council, invents devilish engines which in the second day's fight put Michael and his angels to some disorder. But they at length, pulling up mountains, overwhelmed both the force and machines of Satan. Yet the tumult not so ending, God on the third day sends Messiah, his Son, for whom he had reserved the glory of that victory. He, in the power of his Father, coming to the place, and causing all his legions to stand still on either side, with his chariot and thunder driving into the midst of his enemies, pursues them, unable to resist, towards the wall of heaven. Which opening, they leap down with horror and confusion into the place of punishment prepared for them in the deep. Messiah returns with triumph to his Father. Book 6. All night the dreadless angel, unpursued, through heaven's wide champaign held his way, till morn, waked by the circling hours, with rosy hand unbarred the gates of light. There is a cave within the mount of God, fast by his throne, where light and darkness in perpetual round lodge and dislodge by turns, which makes through heaven grateful vicissitude, like day and night. Light issues forth, and at the other door obsequious darkness enters, till her hour to veil the heaven, though darkness there might well seem twilight here. And now went forth the morn, such as in highest heaven, arrayed in gold, imperial. From before her vanished night, shot through with orient beams, when all the plain, covered with thick embattled squadrons bright, chariots and flaming arms and fiery steeds reflecting blaze on blaze, first met his view. War he perceived, war in procinct, and found already known what he for news had thought to have reported. Gladly then he mixed among those friendly powers, who him received with joy and acclamations loud, that one, that of so many myriads fallen, yet one, returned not lost. On to the sacred hill they led him high applauded, and present before the seat supreme, from whence a voice, from midst a golden cloud, thus mild was heard. Servant of God, well done, well hast thou fought the better fight, who single hast maintained against revolted multitudes the cause of truth, in word mightier than they in arms. And for the testimony of truth hast borne universal reproach, far worse to bear than violence, for this was all thy care, to stand approved in sight of God, though worlds judged thee perverse. The easier conquest now remains thee, aided by this host of friends, back on thy foes more glorious to return, than scorned thou didst depart, and to subdue by force, who reason for their law refuse, right reason for their law and for their King Messiah, who by right of merit reigns. Go, Michael, of celestial armies prince, and thou in military prowess next, Gabriel, lead forth to battle these my sons invincible, lead forth my armed saints, by thousands and by millions ranged for fight, equal in number to that godless crew rebellious. Them with fire and hostile arms fearless assault, and to the brow of heaven pursuing drive them out from God and bliss into their place of punishment, the gulf of Tartarus, which ready opens wide his fiery chaos to receive their fall. So spake the sovereign voice, and clouds began to darken all the hill, and smoke to roll in dusky wreaths, reluctant flames the sign of wrath awaked. Nor with less dread the loud ethereal trumpet from on high gan blow, at which command the powers militant that stood for heaven, in mighty quadrate joined of union irresistible, moved on in silence their bright legions to the sound of instrumental harmony, that breathed heroic ardour to adventurous deeds under their godlike leaders in the cause of God and his Messiah. On they move, indissolubly firm, nor obvious hill, nor straightening vale, nor wood, nor stream divides their perfect ranks. For high above the ground their march was, and the passive air upbore their nimble tread, as when the total kind of birds in orderly array on wing came summoned over Eden to receive their names of thee. So over many a tract of heaven they marched, and many a province wide, tenfold the length of this terrain. At last, far in the horizon to the north appeared, from skirt to skirt, a fiery region, stretched in batailless aspect and nearer view, bristled with upright beams innumerable, of rigid spears, and helmets thronged, and shields various with boastful argument portrayed, the banded powers of Satan, hasting on with furious expedition. For they weened that self-same day by fight or by surprise to win the mount of God, and on his throne to set the envier of his state, the proud aspirer. But their thoughts proved fond and vain in the midway. Though strange to us it seemed at first that angel should with angel war, and in fierce hosting meet, who wont to meet so oft in festivals of joy, and love unanimous as sons of one great sire, hymning the eternal Father. But the shout of battle now began, and rushing sound of onset ended soon each milder thought. High in the midst, exalted as a god, the apostate in his sun-bright chariot sat, idol of majesty divine, enclosed with flaming cherubim and golden shields, then lighted from his gorgeous throne, for now, twixt host and host but narrow space was left, a dreadful interval, and front to front presented stood in terrible array of hideous length. Before the cloudy van, on the rough edge of battle ere it joined, Satan, with vast and haughty strides, advanced, came towering, armed in adamant and gold. Abdiel, that sight, endured not where he stood among the mightiest, bent on highest deeds, and thus his own undaunted heart explores. Oh, heaven, that such resemblance of the highest should yet remain, where faith and realty remain not. Wherefore should not strength and might there fail where virtue fails, or weakest prove where boldest, though to fight unconquerable? His puissance, trusting in the Almighty's aid, I mean to try, whose reason I have tried unsound and false. Nor is it aught but just that he who in debate of truth hath won should win in arms, in both disputes alike, victor. Though brutish that contest and foul when reason hath to deal with force, yet so most reason is that reason overcome. So pondering, and from his armed peers forth stepping opposite halfway, he met his daring foe, at this prevention more incensed, and thus securely him defied. Proud art thou met? Thy hope was to have reached the height of thy aspiring unopposed, the throne of God unguarded, and his side abandoned at the terror of thy power or potent tongue. Fool, not to think how vain against the omnipotent to rise in arms, who out of smallest things could without end have raised incessant armies to defeat thy folly, or with solitary hand reaching beyond all limit at one blow, unaided could have finished thee, and whelmed thy legions under darkness. But thou seest all are not of thy train. There be who faith prefer, and piety to God, though then to thee not visible, when I alone seemed in thy world erroneous to dissent from all. My sect thou seest. Now learn too late how few sometimes may know, when thousands err. Whom the grand foe, with scornful eye askance, thus answered. Ill for thee, but in wished hour of my revenge, first sought for, thou return'st from flight, seditious angel, to receive thy merited reward. The first assay of this right hand provoked, since first that tongue, inspired with contradiction, durst oppose a third part of the gods, in synod met the deities to assert, who, while they feel vigour divine within them, can allow omnipotence to none. But well thou comest before thy fellows, ambitious to win from me some plume, that thy success may show destruction to the rest. This pause between, unanswered lest thou boast, to let thee know, at first I thought that liberty and heaven to heavenly souls had been all one, but now I see that most through sloth had rather serve, ministering spirits trained up in feast and song. Such hast thou armed the minstrelsy of heaven, servility with freedom to contend, as both their deeds compared this day shall prove. To whom in brief thus Abdiel stern replied. Apostate, still thou errest, nor end wilt find of erring from the path of true remote. Unjustly thou depravest it with the name of servitude, to serve whom God ordains or nature. God and nature bid the same, when he who rules is worthiest, and excels them whom he governs. This is servitude. to serve the unwise, or him who hath rebelled against his worthier, as thine now serve thee, thyself not free, but to thyself enthralled, yet lewdly darest our ministering upbraid? Reign thou in hell, thy kingdom. Let me serve in heaven God ever blessed, and his divine behests obey, worthiest to be obeyed. Yet chains in hell not realms expect. Meanwhile, from me returned, as erst thou saidst, from flight, this greeting on thy impious crest, receive. So saying, a noble stroke he lifted high, which hung not, but so swift with tempest fell on the proud crest of Satan, that no sight nor motion of swift thought less could his shield such ruin intercept. 10 paces huge he back recoiled, the 10th on bended knee, his massy spear upstayed, as if on earth winds underground or waters forcing way sidelong had pushed a mountain from his seat, half sunk with all his pines. Amazement seized the rebel thrones, but greater rage to see thus foiled their mightiest. Ours joy filled and shout, presage of victory and fierce desire of battle, whereat Michael bid sound the archangel trumpet. Through the vast of heaven it sounded, and the faithful armies rung Hosanna to the highest. Nor stood at gaze the adverse legions, nor less hideous joined the horrid shock. Now storming fury rose, and clamour such as heard in heaven till now was never. Arms on armour clashing brayed horrible discord, and the madding wheels of brazen chariots raged. Dire was the noise of conflict. Overhead the dismal hiss of fiery darts in flaming volleys flew, and flying vaulted either host with fire. So under fiery cope together rushed both battles main with ruinous assault and inextinguishable rage. All heaven resounded, and had earth been then, all earth had to her centre shook. What wonder, when millions of fierce encountering angels fought on either side, the least of whom could wield these elements, and arm him with the force of all their regions? How much more of power, army against army, numberless, to raise dreadful combustion warring, and disturb, though not destroy, their happy native seat? Had not the eternal King omnipotent, from his strong hold of heaven, high overruled and limited their might, though numbered such as each divided legion might have seemed a numerous host, in strength each armed hand a legion, led in fight, yet leader seemed each warrior single, as in chief expert when to advance or stand or turn the sway of battle, open when and when to close the ridges of grim war. No thought of flight, none of retreat, no unbecoming deed that argued fear. Each on himself relied, as only in his arm the moment lay of victory. Deeds of eternal fame were done, but infinite, for wide was spread that war and various. Sometimes on firm ground a standing fight, then soaring on main wing tormented all the air. All air seemed then conflicting fire. Long time in even scale the battle hung, till Satan, who that day prodigious power had shown and met in arms no equal, ranging through the dire attack of fighting seraphim confused, at length saw where the sword of Michael smote, and felled squadrons at once, with huge two-handed sway brandished aloft. The horrid edge came down, wide wasting. Such destruction to withstand he hasted, and opposed the rocky orb of tenfold adamant, his ample shield of vast circumference. At his approach the great archangel from his warlike toils surceased, and glad, as hoping here to end intestine war in heaven, the arch-foe subdued or captive dragged in chains, with hostile frown and visage all inflamed first thus began. Author of evil, unknown till thy revolt, unnamed in heaven, now plenteous, as thou seest these acts of hateful strife, hateful to all, though heaviest by just measure on thyself and thy adherents, how hast thou disturbed heaven's blessed peace, and into nature brought misery, uncreated till the crime of thy rebellion? How hast thou instilled thy malice into thousands once upright and faithful, now proved false? But think not here to trouble holy rest. Heaven casts thee out from all her confines, heaven the seat of bliss, brooks not the works of violence and war. Hence then, and evil go with thee along, thy offspring to the place of evil, hell. Thou and thy wicked crew there mingle broils, ere this avenging sword begin thy doom, or some more sudden vengeance winged from God precipitate thee with augmented pain. So spake the Prince of Angels, to whom thus the adversary. Nor think thou with wind of airy threats to awe whom yet with deeds thou canst not. Hast thou turned the least of these to flight, or if to fall, but that they rise unvanquished? Easier to transact with me that thou shouldst hope, imperious and with threats, to chase me hence? Err not, that so shall end the strife which thou call'st evil, but we style the strife of glory, which we mean to win, or turn this heaven itself into the hell thou fablest. Here, however, to dwell free, if not to reign. Meanwhile, thy utmost force, and join him named Almighty to thy aid. I fly not, but have sought thee far and nigh. They ended parle, and both addressed for fight unspeakable, for who, though with the tongue of angels, can relate, or to what things liken on earth conspicuous, that may lift human imagination to such height of godlike power? For likest gods they seemed, stood they o'ermoved in stature, motion, arms, fit to decide the empire of great heaven. Now waved their fiery swords, and in the air made horrid circles. Two broad suns their shields blazed opposite, while expectation stood in horror. From each hand, with speed, retired, where erst was thickest fight, the angelic throng, and left large field unsafe within the wind of such commotion. Such as, to set forth great things by small, if nature's concord broke, among the constellations war was sprung. Two planets, rushing from aspect malign of fiercest opposition, in mid-sky should combat, and their jarring spheres confound. Together both, with next to almighty arm, uplifted imminent, one stroke they aimed that might determine, and not need repeat, as not of power at once. Nor odds appeared in might or swift prevention. But the sword of Michael, from the armoury of God, was given him tempered so, that neither keen nor solid might resist that edge. It met the sword of Satan, with steep force to smite descending, and in half cut sheer, nor stayed, but with swift wheel reversed, deep entering, shared all his right side. Then Satan first knew pain, and writhed him to and fro convolved, so sore the griding sword with discontinuous wound passed through him. But the ethereal substance closed, not long divisible, and from the gash a stream of nectarous humour issuing flowed sanguine, such as celestial spirits may bleed, and all his armour stained, erewhile so bright. Forthwith, on all sides to his aid was run by angels many and strong who interposed defence, while others bore him on their shields back to his chariot, where it stood retired from off the files of war. There they him laid, gnashing for anguish and despite and shame, to find himself not matchless, and his pride, humbled by such rebuke, so far beneath his confidence to equal God in power. Yet soon he healed, for spirits that live throughout, vital in every part, not as frail man in entrails, heart, of head, liver, or reins, cannot, but by annihilating, die, nor in their liquid texture mortal wound receive, no more than can the fluid air. All heart they live, all head, all eye, all ear, all intellect, all sense, and, as they please, they limn themselves, and colour, shape, or size assume, as likes them best, condense, or rare.